Sure, no problem.
Yeah, so I think we'll start, Devi.
Yes, ma'am. We can start. Anirudh.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. Good morning, Sandeep sir, and good morning, everyone present here.
Good morning.
So today, Vikita V. Patel will be the host for the day. So I hand over the session to Vikita. So Vikita, you may continue.
Okay, Anirudh. Okay. The price of success is hard work, dedication, and determination to win and prove ourselves. Good morning, everyone. I'm Vikita from MBA Batch 18. I'm extremely honored to welcome you all to the third series of Industry Institute Interaction Session. We at SCMS School of Technology and Management believe that interaction with experts is essential for students to gain a good exposure to the corporate world. Experts from various industries and profiles are invited to share their views and experiences on various aspects of management, and we students gain immensely with these leaders. I consider it my privilege to welcome our Vice Chairman, Mr. Pramod P. Tevanur, and our Registrar and Group Director, Dr. Radha P. Tevanur, who are our pillars of guidance for this event. Next, I welcome our chief guest, Mr. Sandeep Menon, founder and director of Wheels Wisdom, Bangalore. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation to talk to us. Mr. Sandeep Menon will be speaking to us on the topic, Entrepreneurship, Is It For Me? Next, I would like to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. G. Shashikumar, sir, who is always there to inspire and motivate us in his absence. Next, I would also like to welcome our head of the department, Dr. Susan Abraham, who has extended full support to us in all our activities. Next, I welcome the faculty coordinators for this event, Dr. Shobha Menon and Ms. Devi S. Nair. Last but not the least, I would like to welcome all our faculty members, fellow students, and all others present for this session. I hope and request your active participation throughout this program for its grand success. Once again, I welcome you all. I kindly request all participants to mute their mics and turn off their cameras for better bandwidth and smooth conduct of the session. The questions can be posted on the chat box, which will be answered by our chief guest at the end. Now, I would like to invite Anirudh M to introduce the chief guest. Over to you, Anirudh.
Yeah, thank you, Vikita. So I'll be introducing the guest for all of you. Mr. Sandeep Menon is the founder and director of Wheels Wisdom Bangalore, a company which provides technical assistance for your car services. Mr. Menon is electrical engineer with a management degree from XLRI Jamshedpur. Previous to starting Wheels Wisdom in the year 2015, he was Vice President, Technology Risk Division at Goldman Sachs. He has also worked with Oracle and Wipro in higher managerial positions. Mr. Menon has clocked more than 5 lakh kilometers of driving experience across the world over a 28-year period. He started Wheels Wisdom, driven by his passion for cars and creating jobs in the auto sector. Wheels Wisdom offers customized premium car service and repairs at customers' doorstep. With a presence in 3 southern cities, the auto startup aims to drive into Pune, Mumbai, and Chennai, and even New Delhi NCR very soon. Sir, with these words, I wholeheartedly welcome you to the session.
Thank you, Anirudh.
Thank you, Anirudh. Now, I request our chief guest, Mr. Sandeep Menon, to address the students. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vikita. Honorable members of the faculty, principal, and Dr. Shobha, thank you for inviting me. I'm privileged to be able to speak to a bright set of students, many of whom I'm sure are going to be future entrepreneurs, creating amazing products and creating a lot of jobs, which our economy needs. I promise I'll try and make it as interactive and interesting as possible. I have brought with me 14 slides to give it some structure. And I promise to get through those slides as quickly as I can. The part of every session I love is the Q&A. I love the interaction, and I will be really looking forward to your questions. And I think that really brings out the best of any session. So without much ado, I'll get started with the presentation. I hope you'll be able to see it in a minute. All right. Can Vikita confirm if you can see the presentation, Vikita?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. So the topic for today is entrepreneurship. Is it for me? All right. How many of you in this group have at some point thought of starting up on your own? Can you unmute your mics and call out your name? It's okay even if it takes a minute. If you ever thought of starting off on your own at some point in your life.
Students, can you respond, please?
It's okay. Don't worry about what others will think of you. It's also meant to break the ice a little bit, to kill the monotony. There should be at least a couple of you, isn't it, who must have thought of this? All right, we'll move forward. I think at later stages from your questions, I can make out. So a lot of students and a lot of professionals these days have that thought that, at some point I'll do something on my own, and this might have originated from various reasons, right? It could be that you see around you a problem that you believe must not exist. You want to correct that. You want to make it better for people. You see a wrong around you which you want to right. You want to make it right. You see an inefficiency in some system that either you or people around you experience, and you have this burning desire to change that and make it a more efficient system, right? And it could be anything. It could be related to your day-to-day lives. It could be related to a particular section of the society. For example, it could be making life easier for people after retirement. It could be, helping reduce exposure to online risks for children. It could be something as simple as making it easy for people to get into a city bus, right? It could be anything, something that bothers you, that you feel that is not right and must be changed. And usually these are the right sparks for entrepreneurship. And I guess, is there somebody who's not on mute? If you please put it back on mute. I can hear a bit of an echo of my own voice. Thanks. So I do get a lot of questions from young folks asking that I have a so and so idea, and do you think I can start a company? Do you think this will work? Is this a right way to start something? And so on. And I often find it very difficult to pass a quote unquote advice. I can only try and help share my experiences. And what I believe is, with entrepreneurship, there is no right and wrong way of doing anything. There is only what works and what doesn't work. So the only way to find out what works and what doesn't is to try and experiment. So with that being the background, I wanted to share my learnings in terms of is it for everyone? But what does it take to survive and thrive as an entrepreneur? Is it as beautiful as it looks from the outside, and so on. So with that in mind, I have structured the presentation, but keep in mind that you don't have to really restrict yourself to what's on the presentation. And during Q&A, you can pretty much ask whatever you want to ask, all right? So is it just about following your passion, right? A lot of times I've heard um, advice, and sometimes uh, a lot of entrepreneurs' success is interpreted as uh, they're just following their passion. And I'll give you my own example, right? I used to love cars. I still love cars. And it is also true that the reason why I started Wheels Wisdom, which is in the space of car servicing, is due to my love for cars. But I can tell you that to succeed as an entrepreneur, it goes way beyond just following your passion. Passion might give you your initial spark or your initial drive to jump into whatever you want to start. But trust me, once you get into it, it's a lot about administration, running the company, and to a large extent, finance. And if you do not have co-founders, if you're a single founder, then it's guaranteed that you're going to be overwhelmed by running the company rather than finding time to indulge in your passion as much as you thought you will be able to when you started the company. For example, if you love food and you start a restaurant, uh, pretty soon you'll realize that you got very little time left to enjoy food. You're spending most of your time ensuring that your customers, you have customers, and your customers are happy, and they come back, and then they refer other people, uh, and your profit and loss statement, and so on. So it's very, very important to understand that passion is simply one of the components that will probably get you started. But remember that it's not as simple as uh, just following your passion. There is a lot more that goes into making your business successful. At the same time, I don't want to undermine the importance of passion. So take, for example, celebrities or artists, right? Uh, Look at experienced or very popular singers or music composers or even sportsmen, right? Um, if you look at their history, it's true that at some point they would have shown a extraordinary talent for what they do, but it's not without extraordinary effort and practice that they make it perfect, right? So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. If you ask me, was it passion first or was it hard work first, right? And there is a lot of literature on this topic, on how much of your success is attributable to your genes or your natural talent, as if you want to call it that, and how much of it is due to the conditioning and to the hard work or the environment that you are in, and repetitive uh, uh, habits. Because it's proven that when you have habits, you are able to do them subconsciously, and your brain sort of gets better and better at doing the same things again and again, firing the same circuit over and over again. So you don't have to consciously do those tasks anymore. So then they build on each other. You might initially have a passion, and then when you do well at it, you want to do more of it. You work harder at it, and then you get even better at it. Uh, so passion is definitely an important component, but the point I want you all to take home is it's not enough, and that's not all. There's a lot more than just following your passion to entrepreneurship. Purpose. You might have heard of this a lot, right? This is often the answer to the why question, right? Why do I want to start on my own? What is the reason behind it? Because the answer to this why question will determine how far you will go, how much of grit you will show, how much of persistence and perseverance you will be able to show over the long run, right? And entrepreneurship is a marathon. It's not a sprint, especially if you're trying to do something which has not been done before, right? And at that time, it's very important for you to have a clear sense of purpose. Why am I doing this? Why am I starting this company? why do I want to do this business? And as I will speak to you in a couple of minutes, there will be a lot of headwinds you will have to encounter. A lot of people will ask you, why do you want to do this instead of taking up a good job? Um, and you will have to have some very good thumping answers to those questions. Because the people who will ask you will be your loved ones and people who want you to do well in life. So they're going to ask you tough questions, and if you want to be able to answer those, that is only going to happen if you have a deep sense of purpose. What are examples of purpose, right? If you look at companies like Microsoft, and you spoke to Bill Gates during the days when Microsoft was ascending and or growing in terms of revenue and market share, and if you were to ask him, why are you doing this, right? He believed that he's democratizing computing power, right? He believed that he's building a system where a lot more people will be able to access personal computers and accomplish different tasks. And similarly, you got to have a passion, as we spoke earlier, which might get you started. But then you need to have a sense of purpose as to why I'm doing this. The answer to this why question will you will keep coming back to this during moments of despair, during moments of self-doubt, uh, when you have difficulties with finance or emotional strength. The purpose will keep coming back to you, and that will give you the fuel to stay put and keep the fight on. All right, so that's very important. And then I want to talk about meaning, right? Before you start any business, of course, a lot of us read, if you were to read literature around how to get started, you will find a lot of excellent inputs. For example, um, market surveys, speaking to experts, getting a prototype out, which you can try on potential customers, building a MVP, right, which is your minimum viable product. Instead of spending a lot of time perfecting your first version that goes into the market, try and build something that's just about working and see how the market responds to that, and so on. While all of these are excellent inputs, the one parameter, if I may call it, which I find extremely important before you even launch, is, does my product or does my service bring some meaning into my customers' lives, right? What does it mean to them, right? Does it solve a problem that your target audience is facing on a daily basis? Does it make their life better? I'll give you a very uncommon example, right? Many of you might have been little kids when, to book a railway ticket, you would have to go to the railway station and stand in a queue to book a ticket, right? And then came along the online ticketing system, which revolutionized and uh, made it very easy for anyone to book a railway ticket sitting at home from the comfort of their computers. Now, this brought a significant meaning into people's life, right? This piece of technology, while one could argue that it came too late or it had its glitches, but the fact is, for a country as large as ours, it makes a huge difference. Now, doesn't it make a huge difference in the lives of ordinary people? Doesn't it bring some meaning into their life? It absolutely does, right? Another example would be, and I'm talking about examples at huge scale, right? Another example, if you have traveled on the national highways recently, you can see that you don't have to spend cash anymore, right? You have a fast tag which is on your windshield, which gets scanned, and you just breeze through. And during times like these, when the pandemic is in its second wave and spreading fast, not having to open your car window at a toll booth is revolutionary, isn't it? Think about that. It brings a huge meaning into the lives of users who use that product or use that service, right? Similarly, what meaning is your service or your product going to bring into the lives of your users or your customers, right? Do they love it? is it bringing a difference in their lives? If yes, there is a good chance that your business will be successful and money will automatically follow. You don't have to chase money when you're building a when you new business, especially if you're trying to do something which others haven't done before, right? For example, entrepreneurship is a very vast, it's an ocean, right? The tea shop near your college was also started by an entrepreneur, right? And hats off to people like them that we have a vibrant ecosystem around us, right? Look around in your room, look away from your computer monitor for a moment and look at things that are there in your room, right? Every physical object that you are looking at, whether it's your laptop or your webcam or your monitor or the curtain in your room, was manufactured by an entrepreneur somewhere, isn't it? They thought that I could do this and they did it, and therefore today we have that product, right? And that's also true with technology. The Zoom software that we're using now was conceived by an entrepreneur at some stage, and look, today we're using it. So life shows us that every bit of convenience that we have today was at some point conceived by some entrepreneur somewhere, right? And if it was not for them, we wouldn't have these. So does that not bring a meaning into our lives? It does. So whenever you're thinking of starting up or entrepreneurship, think, what meaning does it bring into the lives of my customers? And this is true with any kind of business. It doesn't have to be a business that has never been done before. For example, if you were to start a bakery, it does bring meaning into the lives of people who come and buy stuff from that bakery, right? Being able to buy a healthy and beautiful birthday cake brings meaning into the lives of people who come to that store, isn't it? So it does not matter what business you start. Think what meaning it brings into the lives of your customers. If you see meaning, there is a very high likelihood that it will succeed, and then money automatically follows. Remember that you will never have to chase money if your customer experience is good and you are not way off the basic mathematics, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. Painkillers and vitamins. And I would have loved to have this session in a real room with looking at all of you and asking you this question. But given the limitations of online, I'll probably just continue talking. This is really an interactive slide, to be honest. I'm sure you all come across these terms, from a medical perspective, right? If you have a paracetamol, it's a painkiller, right? You have a pain and you have to have a paracetamol to get better or to bring down a fever. At the same time, you also have vitamin tablets, and people take them, and a lot of people don't take them also, right? Um, so so painkillers are products and services that relieve a pain for consumers, right? And vitamins are also products and services, but they may not be really solving a pain point. They might be more of good to haves. And you look around you, and you will find examples of both kinds of products and services. And depending upon whom you speak to, the same product or service might be perceived as a painkiller by one and as a vitamin by somebody else, right? Um, Try and launch something which is a painkiller, right? To give you a simple example of our business, what Wheels Wisdom does, we found that a lot of customers were getting cheated when their cars are getting serviced, and this was a real problem. A lot of customers openly told me, and I knew this because I loved cars, and even before I started Wheels Wisdom, I was helping people reduce their service bills and so on. And I used to see that people were being asked to replace components and carry out repairs in their cars, which the car did not even need. And the vehicle owners could hardly cross check this because they did not have the knowledge to cross check this. So I thought, why not have a service where we pick up the vehicle and we take it to the service center and we ensure that unnecessary repairs are not allowed on our cars. And when we actually were able to do that, we saw that customers' service bills dropped. A lot of customers told us that I've never seen a 4-figure service bill in my life. I've always seen 5 figures, like 10,000, 20,000, and so on. Are you sure you guys did everything you should do in this car? Like, have you skipped something to reduce my bill? And those were our initial responses when we started the business. And later on, we found that this was a real pain for a lot of people. And sometimes your consumers don't know that they have a pain. It's very funny. And I mean, the iPhone example is quoted a lot, right? Before the iPhone was born, people had Blackberries and the Nokia E series and so on, and nobody knew they had a problem until the iPhone came along, right? So many pain points that consumers have, sometimes they don't know they are going through pain, and you might have to do some initial prototype experiments to see if your customers realize that, and are they ready to pay for it. But certain other pains are very obvious, right? For example, even today, how easy is it to board a bus from a point A to point B in our cities? It's a problem that I don't think has been completely solved yet, right? And especially in a developing nation, you have a lot of problems that are yet to be solved. And any problem that you see around you that is yet to be solved is a potential opportunity. And given the size of a country like ours, the opportunities are huge because we have about 1/6 of the world's population, right? And therefore, when you start off, try to start with a painkiller product, which people have to absolutely have, right? And later on, you might want to have vitamin products also, which are nice to have, but people can do without. I'll give you an example of a vitamin product in our portfolio, right? We also have a service where we help customers decide which car they should buy next, right? We don't really market that a lot. Do we have a question? I think we need to mute a couple of mics.
Yeah. Dr. Asharaj, hello, ma'am. Sorry, Sandeep sir. Let me just mute.
Sure, I think it's muted. It's muted now, I guess, right? All right. So I was giving an example of a vitamin product in our portfolio, right? So we had this service where we would help customers choose their next car, and some people needed it. Some people were very excited when they heard that, oh, you have that service, I would love to take it. And a lot of people said, why do I even need that? And I can go online and read about all the cars that I want, and I can go to the showroom and look at the vehicles, and I don't think I even need that service. So that's an example of a vitamin service, right? Where not everyone needs it, but some people need it, and that's okay. So try not to start with a vitamin service, because sometimes what happens is all your energy that you have as an entrepreneur and all your optimism gets soaked and gets drained into that initial effort, and you get demoralized that I don't know how to do this, or I'm going to be a failure, and so on. So try and pick up a service or a product which a lot of people need, and a lot of people are going to appreciate if they have that offered to them, right? So that's an interesting way to look at it, whether you're going to provide a painkiller or a vitamin. All right. Personal finance. Now this is my favorite, and when people I know personally call me and tell me that I'm planning to start a business, the first thing I ask them is, if they are married, is does your wife earn good enough, right? And if they are not married, I ask them, how much do your parents earn, or do they still earn, or do you have enough money to fund you for the next 6 years, or will you go bankrupt? Personally, I'm not talking about the company now, okay? I'm talking about your own finance. How will you survive? Because unlike proven businesses, let's take a tea shop or a bakery, for example, right? These are tough businesses, but they have a proven business model, and you can fairly do a fairly good job if you don't get the basics wrong. What are the basics of a bakery, for example, right? You want to be positioned at a good place, right? Your location, your bakery, if it's on a so if it's at a busy junction, you're going to get a large amount of footfall. You want to make it look very clean and hygienic, and you want to provide healthy snacks so that your customers don't fall sick. You don't want to be pricing your bakery products way above what the shop in the next block charges, right? And so on. So if you get those basics right, there is a very high probability that your bakery will succeed, and you will probably build a brand around it. You can, right? Whereas if you're starting something which has never been tried before, right? And typically startups tend to be counted in that category, that you're starting something which hasn't been done before, or only a few people have tried it and mostly without success. What you're doing in those cases is you are changing consumer behavior, right? For example, what are we trying to do? We are trying to change consumer behavior. Our consumers are used to sending their cars to authorized service centers, and we are trying to change that. We are trying to have them give their cars to us. Now it takes a lot of evangelizing and a lot of social proof in terms of customer reviews or people sharing their testimonials, people referring others, and so on, before you can get a critical mass of customers, which then makes your business profitable. And that's the reason why a majority of the startups around you are not profitable, right? They are constantly in an investment mode where investors keep investing into that startup, and with the hope that it will garner a lot of market share, and at some point it will become profitable, right? But what will happen to your finance during this period, right? How will you survive? Now, a very, very tiny fraction of companies get venture funding, right? Venture funding might look very interesting, but the truth is that a very, very tiny number of companies get funded by venture capitalists. And even if you do get funded by a venture capitalist, there is a high chance that the company may not survive, because again, among funded companies funded by VCs, there is again a very tiny number of companies that actually succeed. So let's keep the VC investment aside, because it's anyway a very remote possibility. You have to realize this, that if you make it, fantastic, but assume that you will not make VC investment. You won't be able to make it when you start, and plan that way so that your company will survive even without a VC investment, and take it as a challenge that I'll make my company profitable. Now that's about the company. What about you, right? If you're starting a business after having worked for a few years, you might have some savings, but generally that's not enough to take you for another 4, 5, or 6 years, because it takes an average of 5 to 6 years before your startup will even approach profitability, right? So make sure that you have good amount of personal finance kept aside before you start, or you should be able to take support from your immediate family members, and they should be okay with that. They should not be looking at it as they should not be making you feel guilty about it. For example, that look, you've been trying to run this company for the last 4 years and it's not profitable. Why don't you just quit and start join take up a job? I've already spent, you're living on my expenses. That cannot be the approach. So this is not something that you can manufacture. The attitude of your loved ones towards your entrepreneurial journey is very important, especially if you need financial support from them. Now, this financial support could be coming from your parents, or if you're married, from your spouse, or it could even be coming from your friends who believe in you. Or if you're lucky, you could have family, extended family, or friends who want to invest in your business, which is fantastic, because then you can draw a small salary, which can keep you going until the business is independent and makes a lot of profits. So please do spend some time on your own personal finance. And one big no-no is using your credit cards to survive when you are running your business, because these days, once you have a credit card, you have a credit line, it's very convenient to start using it, and credit card companies will be very happy if you pay the minimum balance and you revolve your credit and you end up paying 28 to 30% interest yearly if you rotate your credit. Now that's going to put you into a debt trap. So please do not fall in that trap, and please never take a personal loan to start a business. It's just not worth it. Okay, businesses must be started with capital that are meant for business, right? People who have extra money lying with them and who want to take a risk, and who believe in you, and they're okay if that money sinks. And that kind of capital is what should be used when you start a business. Please do not use money that is meant for survival for business, because that's very, very dangerous. It's going to put you into unnecessary psychological pressure, because company affairs themselves are enough pressure. You don't want to be having personal issues when you're trying to run your company, right? Now coming to funding, right? How will you fund your business? We talked about personal finance for entrepreneurs, but what about funding the company? Now there are different ways of doing this. As I mentioned, you could have people investing in your business. And how does somebody invest in your business? You will have to register a private limited company or any other type of entity which can accept investments, right? And have a structure, and you should take the help of a qualified company secretary to do this. And that's something I tell everyone, that please take help from professionals to do professional work, right? Don't try to take shortcuts. Company secretaries are the right people who will help you do this, and take their help and set up a company that can accept investments from others as and when somebody is ready to invest in your business. And you will have to give them shares in exchange of it, right? Or equity as it is known. There are also other types of legal entities you can create, like sole proprietorships and partnerships, which have their own pros and cons. A simple Google search will tell you what is the right structure for you. At the same time, having a 1 year runway. The runway is a period that your company has enough cash to survive for. So having at least a year of runway is desirable, because uh, you don't want to be worried about funding on a day-to-day basis when you're running your startup or running your business, right? One thing that I always recommend you should avoid is, please don't take informal loans from people to start a business, right? Please don't do that, because when you take informal loans, typically these are based on your personal relationships, and a loan is a loan, right? Whether you have a written agreement or you don't, at the end of the day, a loan is a loan, and you have to return it. And depending upon what you agreed with the person who lent you that money, you either committed an interest rate or you committed something else in return, right? Loans are not the best ways to start a business, unless you're a capital, and you have a lot of physical assets, like you're buying a lot of physical assets for your business, which can be sold at a later point in time, and you can recover some amount of money. But most of the new businesses that you want to start today are not that kind of businesses, right? You will be spending on employee salaries, you might be spending on software development, developing technology, and so on. And there is hardly any physical asset. So you must try and raise money from people who are ready to take a risk, and who get a percentage of your business in return as ownership. That makes a lot of sense, especially in the early stages, right? And make it clear to people who are putting money into your business that it's a very risky investment and that they might lose all their money. At least there is a theoretical possibility that that can happen. And while everyone is optimistic when we start, please do make them imagine that situation and tell them that if you lose this money, what's the impact on you? Are you going to get into trouble if all this money goes down the drain? If yes, don't invest, right? It's okay. You can start up a little later when somebody else is available who can invest in you. But try and ensure take care of the interests of people who are investing in your company, because sometimes they don't have a complete understanding of what's going to happen, how risky this investment is going to be. And if it is a technology driven business, they might not even understand what you're trying to do, right? They might be giving you the money just because they believe in you, right? And that's fine, but make it clear that there is a certain risk involved in this, and they should not get into serious trouble if all the money goes down the drain. So funding takes care of ensuring the company survives during the period that between the period that you start and you become profitable. Once you become profitable, as you know, the cash flows are positive. You can reinvest your profits into your company. You can grow and so on. So moving on, this is very interesting, and I get a lot of questions around this from people who want to start their own companies. What am I starting? Is it a startup? Is it a small business? Or am I starting a company? And does it even matter, right? My personal take on this is don't get worried about this jargon, right? Depending upon which website you look at, or depending upon whom you speak to, you will find varying definitions of what a startup is. Like, you talk to government of India, they have their own definition of what a startup is, right? There are certain benefits that the government will give you if you are registered as a startup. By all means, go and take those advantages, right? Register yourself at Startup India and take all those advantages. Uh, is it a small business? Is there a difference between a startup and a small business? Well, I really would urge all of you to not get caught up in this jargon, right? What matters is the things that I shared in the earlier slides, right? Whatever it is it bringing meaning in the lives of my customers? Do I have a strong sense of purpose behind why I'm starting this business? And is it viable? Are people buying it? Can this be sustained? Will it eventually bring profits, right? These are things you want to actually think about and not get worried about what is it called. Am I running a startup, or is it a small business, or am I starting a company? What is it? Just don't worry about it, right? It is all of these, right? When you start anything new, it is a startup because it's something very new that you came up with. It is a small business. Invariably, when you start, it is small, right? So it is a small business because it is a business and it is small, right? And is it a company? That depends on what you register. If you register it as a private limited or a one-person company, then it is a company, legally speaking. And if it is not, it's a proprietorship or it's a partnership, then it's not a company. But just doesn't matter. What matters is it bringing a difference in the lives of your customers? Are customers happy? Are they referring other people? Are you growing on a monthly basis at least? Are customers willing to pay for your service? Do they see value when they pay? Do they feel happy that, yeah, I paid this much money for this service or this product, and I think it's totally worth it? Now, that if you hear that from your customers, you've done it. Now all you have to do is improve it and take it to a lot more customers, right? So moving on, jack of many trades. So probably when you're in school, or probably at different stages of your life, you might have got advised that, don't be a jack of all trades, become a master of one, and so on. When it comes to entrepreneurship, it's the other way around. Okay, when you start something on your own, you have to be a jack of many trades. And I'm not saying all because it's very difficult, but depending on your background, you should be a jack of many trades. You should be able to speak a couple of languages. You should be able to speak to a landlord and negotiate your office rent. You should be able to talk to a software developer and tell him or her what you want to see in that. You should be able to quickly draw a picture on the whiteboard and say, this is how I want the app to look like. You should be able to take an Excel sheet and put your input costs and put your selling prices, look at the percentage margins you will make, try and determine your break-even point, even if it is not correct, but you should be able to put it down, right? So that's a bit of a mathematics. You should be able to understand the tax structure of your country, right? What is GST? In which bracket do I fall? What is GST input credit? And nobody can know everything at any point of time. So what's important is you have to be able to learn fast, right? I'm now hearing more and more that the future belongs to those who can learn the fastest. And you will have to quickly learn and unlearn. Like every 10 or 15 years, The programming languages that you use to code are changing, right? Basically everything around us kind of changes every 10-15 years, and it's very important to be able to unlearn and learn and unlearn and learn and unlearn. And this is true with everybody. And if you're a pilot, you got to get used to fly-by-wire technologies and fully computerized cockpits. If you're a doctor, you have to get used to performing surgeries using robots and so on. So there is no industry or no sector which is immune to that. And I'm sure in the academic field it is true as well. And I'm sure the faculty will attest to this fact that the way you teach a class has radically changed compared to, say, 10 or 15 years back. So it's very important to be able to quickly unlearn and learn new skills. And therefore, being a jack of many trades is very important when you are thinking of starting on your own and becoming an entrepreneur. And don't worry if in your own assessment you feel I'm not a jack of all trades. Don't worry about that, right? These are skills you can acquire. There is nothing that you cannot acquire, provided you have the intent and the will to do it, right? Don't worry about what others think about you. It's all about what you deliver then, right, from now. And sometimes people tell me, in school I was an introvert. What will people think if I make a video now? I mean, who cares, right? People change their opinion very fast. And I've read a lot of literature recently around habits. And one of the things I learned was it is your habits that define your identity, right? There is a fantastic book called Atomic Habits by somebody called James Clear, and I strongly recommend this book if you haven't already read it. And James Clear talks about how a new habit becomes your identity. To give you a quick example, you may not be someone who wakes up early in the morning and goes for a jog, let's say for 20 years of your life. And then suddenly for a month, you start doing it. Now, what happens is people in your home and your friends and neighbors say, oh, that guy, he goes for a jog every day. He's an early riser. Now you become an early riser. Why? Because for 30 days, you woke up early. So your new habit or your habits basically define your identity. And conversely, if you decide what identity you want to have for yourself, you can actually pick and choose habits that give you, and therefore nothing is, it's not too late to start anything. So don't worry if you feel that, oh, Sandeep said that I have to be a jack of many trades and I don't think I am. There's no problem. Start now, right? And you'll become a jack of many trades very soon once you read up. Because chances are that anyone who is an expert, who calls themselves an expert, are outdated in a month's time. So if you read yesterday, you're more up to date, right? And this does not apply to deep learning. Now, deep learning is different. Like if you're a doctor and you're an open heart surgeon, there's no way you and I can read about it tomorrow and become an expert surgeon, right? Obviously, this does not apply to such situations. But if you have been a doctor for 40 years and you've not been updated, then probably it works. So for entrepreneurship, it absolutely works. So try and become a jack of many trades, because you will need those skills. And if you have a co-founder or a couple of co-founders, then it's important to have complementary skills, right? One of you might be very good at marketing and evangelizing your product. The other founder might be excellent with economics and business finance. And the third founder might be great at developing software, which is fantastic. I mean, if you have a team like that, beautiful. Investors also like such teams, okay? But if you are a single founder, what do? You can still do it, right? Read up and then try and recruit people who bring those complementary skills, all right? So try and be a jack of many trades when you start. And even if your company becomes big, as a CEO or as a CXO, you will still have to be a jack of many trades, okay? Emotional strength, something very, very important, and I would really stress on this. How do you know if you have the emotional strength, right? It's very difficult to sort of simulate what's actually going to happen after you start up on your own, okay? But to keep it simple, you have to develop the habit to not feel guilty for everything that goes wrong around you, okay? That's a very basic trait, I would say, is important, right? Try and be an optimist. Try and look for positives among negatives. And you would have read a lot around this, right? In a problem, you see opportunity. Try and develop that habit. It's not something that cannot be developed. You can actually develop that habit, right? You'll have to do it consciously in the beginning, and later you realize that you're able to do it subconsciously, right? You see a lot of people who subconsciously do that, and these may not be highly educated people with a lot of formal education, right? You might have elders in your family who advise you when you are in a situation, and yeah, things are bad, but you know what, at least this is there, right? This good thing is coming out of it. So experience teaches them to look at that, and that's something you can inculcate as a habit early on, where even in hardship you look for opportunities, you look for the positive streaks, and that gives you the energy to keep going. And pretty much that's what it comes down to, right? What is emotional strength? And a lot of people tell me, so Sandeep, that means I should not cry. There's nothing like that, right? It does not matter how you express yourself. I think what's important is that you should express yourself. Not expressing yourself is a bigger problem, right? And don't be afraid, or don't be ashamed to take professional mental health help when you need it. It's very important, because we are in a day and age where people spend a lot of time with their devices, more than people. And I'm not getting into whether it's good or bad, or it's a bane, or it's that's a debate in itself. But what is important is to acknowledge that that is the reality, and whether it is children or teenagers, or grown-ups, or even the elderly, people are spending more and more time with their devices. And devices are getting better and better at understanding your tastes, and serving up content that you like. And sometimes that content is not good for you. It makes you happy for that moment, but not good. So it's very important to be able to know that I'm not feeling okay, and I need to seek help. And it's okay to do that. And it's not only in the context of entrepreneurship, but in everyday life, right? If you feel despondent, or you feel that you're depressed, you must seek help of a professional, and they do a fantastic job of showing you scientifically why you are not the problem, or it's not because of you that you have a problem. And then you start realizing, oh my god, why was I punishing myself all this while, right? It was not me all along, it was something else. And by the way, here are 2 3 things I can do immediately to feel better. And then you will be like, wow, I should have spoken to this person long back. So mental health professionals are fantastic people, and there should not be any stigma attached to talking to them, or and it's not like you're gone mad or anything like that. These are old ways of thinking, and you must definitely seek professional help, mental help, if you need it. But coming back to emotional strength, before you start up, remember that there will be ups and downs, and there are going to be days when you feel like shutting down your startup, or you want to just quit, and you want to go back to whatever it was you were doing before that. There will be days when you will compare yourself to people who were your classmates or your colleagues, and you will compare yourself to where they are today and where you are today, right? Some of them might have gone on for higher studies, some of them might have taken up a job and vacationing, and you will see people vacationing on a beach resort, and you are slogging off to just make your business profitable, right? So a lot of these things are given in the life of an entrepreneur, and take it from me that it is definitely going to happen to you. Like, I have not seen a single entrepreneur who has succeeded who has told me that, I never had all these problems, I was successful from day one. It never happens. And if you want to really, really find out, talk to the bakery owner near your college or near your house. Talk to the barber shop who's running a saloon. You know, life is tough, and they go through ups and downs, and one might think that these are easy businesses. It's not. And there is no funding ecosystem, there is no startup ecosystem around them to help them or anything like that. They have to have a profitable business to bring home money. And they are heroes, people who run these shops and small businesses. So emotional strength is something very important. You will need a lot of it It helps to have a supportive family member or a friend, and that's why having co-founders is a fantastic idea. If you have friends who understand you very well, having them as co-founders is a great idea, because then you have another shoulder to lean on and cry on a bad day, and that helps you a lot, right? So all right, so moving on, credibility. So when you go to market to sell anything, usually your customers will want to know who is selling this, right? It helps if there is a track record. It's not necessary, all right? I'll give you an example. When we started using WhatsApp, did we care about the credibility of the founders of WhatsApp? I don't think so, right? The product was cool enough for us to just download and use it. And that goes without saying for any product that is fantastic. But if your product is not clearly an outlier or outstanding, fantastic product, if it is just something new and you need to evangelize, you need to explain, and people have to try your product or service, they are going to look at who's bringing this product. At that point, it helps if you come from a good college or you have some track record of having done something worthwhile. Now, that does not mean that if I don't have this, I will not be able to start. Please don't have that feeling, but it helps. Credibility definitely helps. Now, credibility can come in different ways. You could have done voluntary work when you were in college or in school, and that shows that you are entrepreneurial by nature. Or you may not have, that's fine. But if you have, you can mention that somewhere. You might have a blog which talks about it. Your company's about page might have a link to your blog maybe, and that shows that this founder is so and so person with so and so background. Let's say you run a photography studio, right? And you won a prize at a photography contest when you were 12 years old. Okay, it makes sense to let the world know that you have that capability and you got that prize, isn't it? Your customers are definitely going to see that as a positive, right? Okay, this guy has been clicking away since he was 12, and maybe he will take good pictures, so let me give my wedding photography to this particular company, right? So it helps to showcase credibility if you have it, and just showcase it. I mean, don't judge if it is good or bad enough, good enough to be shown. Just show it. What can happen if it's not good? It may not work. That's okay. Entrepreneurship is all about trying and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Okay, there are really no right and wrong ways of doing anything. All right. Values, very close to my heart. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term, the closest term I can think of is principles that you live by. And just like individuals, companies or businesses must have values which influence the way people behave with each other or with customers. Example, at Wheels Wisdom, we have three values. We call them technical expertise, quality, and integrity. And every team member who joins is made to understand and made to repeat this over and over again, and we make sure that they understand why these are our values, right? And typically something related to ethics, honesty, or integrity must be part of your value system, because one of the reasons why a lot of companies don't do well is lack of integrity, which is extremely important for a company to be successful in the long run, right? So values. Purity of intent. This is something which is very easy to understand if you think from a common sense perspective, right? What I mean by purity of intent is this relates to the purpose that we talked about earlier, right? Uh, don't start a business to become famous, right? Don't start a company just to get famous. That should not be your intent. Don't start a company to make a lot of money. That should not be your intent. It doesn't work, right? And don't start a company for the wrong reasons, right? Uh, because customers can see through your intent. They can actually feel it, right? When you sell them a product or when you offer them a service and they experience it, they can see through that and they can feel it, and they will very quickly pass a judgment. of what you are trying to do. All right. And only if your intent is pure and you state it unambiguously, right, will the business succeed, right? And haven't you seen a lot of companies these days telling you that, when you buy a bottle of this shampoo, we contribute to so and so program that helps rural education, right? What does a bottle of shampoo have to do with rural education? What's the connection, right? Just think about it. But that's what companies have to do now, because as we go forward, customers are more and more looking beyond their selfish interest, right? And social media has amplified that, right? Customers want to know, what will you do with the money that you make, right? Customers want to know how you treat your employees. Customers want to know what kind of ingredients you put into their product. They are not happy just because the product is tasty, right? They're very particular about the hygiene and the quality of ingredients that goes into it. They're very particular about, are you being honest about the expiry date on your product, for example, right? So it's very important to have purity of intent, and this has to come from the top, right? If you are the founder or you are the CEO, it has to come from you and percolate downwards. And if not, it's going to be very difficult to bring this into the company later. Your own intent has to be absolutely pure. All right. All the best, and go make some meaning. I wish the class all the best. And I think we will stop here for Q&A. And I'm going to exit the presentation so we can see everybody's camera.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving your insights on this topic. Now it's time for Q&A session. I invite Pavitra Paul to read the questions from the chat box. Over to you, Pavitra.
Good morning, sir. So the first question is, how did you arrive at the decision to start car service business, or what made you passionate about the automobiles?
Excellent question. And I want to be honest here. I had no idea that it's going to turn out into a car servicing business, right? When we started, my thought was I will provide a service where, and I'm saying I because when I started, it was just me, right? Um, where we help people choose their next car, right? That was the idea. And I had the feeling that people will pay for it. So the website was charging 1,000 rupees per order. And I had about 22 people signing up for this on a monthly basis. I was very impressed in the first month. Wow, people are using this service, and all of them are very happy after using the service. They said, wow, this insight really helped, and you really made it easy for me to understand the complexities of the car features. And I was very happy. But then month 2 passed and month 3 passed, and I did not see the business growing. And I was very worried. And I was thinking, I left my job and I started this company and it's not working. What do I do now? Right. And I was in a dilemma. I was not sure if I should just go back to my job or I should try something else. And suddenly, and I was starting to think, what type of service, will bring meaning to my customers? What is a bigger need today? And I suddenly realized that, oh my God, I've been missing this servicing bit, because everyone has to service their cars. And a lot of people are getting fleeced. And I know this because I was helping my own friends and family members save money. They would send me pictures of their estimation from the service center, and I was helping them remove one by one the items that are not necessary for that particular situation, right? And they were saving thousands of rupees. And I was like, why didn't I think of this before? And then, with a lot of doubt, I launched this service called, we called it Service Assist. That was a brand given when we started under Wheels Wisdom. We called it Service Assist. And I was relieved, to be honest, that it was growing, on a month-on-month basis. Customers were growing and they were very happy with the service. And automobile enthusiasts who are tough to please, who are members on forums like Team BHP were extremely happy, and they were writing long essays of praises about us, which suddenly made me realize that I was chasing the wrong service. I should have started with this. And then there was no looking back, and we continued to grow that business, and today that is our bread and butter business, car servicing. So the honest answer to your question is I had no idea. I realized it on the way, and I think entrepreneurship is a lot about that. Always having an open mind, listening to the market, listening to customers, looking at what they need. And I'll use this question to slightly go off track, to share a certain terminology with you. It came in an interesting Harvard Business School review, HBR article. The term is job to be done, right? Job to be done. Like in every person's life, there are various jobs to be done, right? Like in our example, a customer needs to get his car serviced without getting fleeced, with the best convenience possible, right? That was the job to be done. So we had to understand what was the pain in getting that done and help our customer do that in the best possible way, right? And there are many other examples I could get into if we had more time. And just a quick example: how does one make ice, right? In the very olden days, people used to dig ice out of lakes during winters, and then store them in places, and then transport them to places that needed ice. And then came another era when you had ice factories, and now you have your own personal ice factory, which is the freezer in your fridge, right? But all three solutions were solving the same problem, that you needed ice, right? Clean ice, right? So one needs to focus on the job to be done, and then try and provide the best service or best offering to the customer. So one needs to keep experimenting and figuring out what is it that customers need most, and try and offer that to the customers.
So the next question is from Naeem, and he's asking how big is the factor luck in startup business, startup success?
Well, I think luck does uh, play a role. There is no doubt about it. Call it luck, serendipity, God's grace. Um, and one might articulate it in different ways. It does play a role, right? At the same time, I'm sure all of us have heard this advice that luck favors the prepared mind, right? If you have worked hard, and if you prepared well, and you've given it your best, um, when luck brings an opportunity, you are ready to grab it. As compared to another situation where you were not expecting it, and suddenly you have this opportunity, and now you don't know what to do, right? You're not able to make use of that opportunity. And conversely, if you have put in your best and you've taken care of all possible problems, when you have a bad luck event happening, it affects you lesser compared to a situation where you haven't given it your best, or you haven't worked hard enough, or you haven't thought through all the possibilities. So yes, luck plays a role. There is no denying that. You talk to founders who have built successful companies, and they will tell you there were events that triggered certain stages of growth, and typically luck triggers that off, or lights that spark. But the fact is that that one spark might have lit up the fire, whereas there were 99 other sparks that did not. And it was because the founder was trying 100 times that one out of the 100 worked when luck came in, right? So usually, we don't appreciate the consistent effort that goes into it, and we only see that one luck factor. And sometimes it's easy to dismiss, say, success as being brought by luck. But the truth is that the reason why people are able to exploit that good luck is because they are well prepared and they have been consistently working. So that's my take on luck. It definitely plays a role, but then you have to keep working at it.
The next question is from Sharon Salim. And he is asking, do you think syllabus structured from schools and colleges in our country limits them to work under someone's dream than to work on their own?
Wow, great question again. I should say when I was a student, I had the same feelings, right? When I was an engineering student, I used to be very disappointed with what was being taught, and I had similar thoughts that, what am I doing? And I used to be a very hands-on guy. I used to like building stuff. Uh, but I think life has taught me that, that's not really true, because see, what happens is when we go through an academic program, uh, the program focuses on packaging a lot into a short period of time, right? And as with anything that is packaged into a short period of time, it is difficult to do justice to all topics, or to, it's a vast ocean of topics out there. And as I was saying a few minutes earlier, things are changing very fast. So even if I were to set a syllabus today based on what I think is important for my company, it is going to get outdated in 6 months. That's the reality. And I think we should appreciate the fact that our education system tries to pack in the best package in terms of an all-round package, which helps you to some extent become the jack of all trades that I spoke about some time back. I often find students telling me that, this is a very boring subject, and the truth is that you never know when that subject is going to become a tool in your working life, right? Work life. So I think one way to look at it is, I think it was Elon Musk who put it this way, that, the what we study at school or at college are like tools, right? Like a screwdriver or a spanner or a soldering iron, or just think of that as a tool. Unless you appreciate the problem that that tool is going to solve or will help you to solve, it's difficult to appreciate the importance of that tool, right? So if you try and teach me how to hold a screwdriver and turn it the right way, and talk to me about the torque I should apply and so on, without telling me that, by the way, Sandeep, this screwdriver is to open a screw, and you will need to open a screw, because unless you open the screw, you won't be able to see what's inside this engine or this computer or whatever. And then I'm going to take it seriously, right? Then, oh my God, I didn't know the screwdriver is so important. I better learn this well. So what I urge students to do when you get that feeling is zoom out a little bit, right? And try to understand in what context this knowledge is going to help you. Appreciate that problem which this solution will help you to solve, because college education is about teaching you all these skills, right? All these how to use the screwdriver, how to use the soldering iron, example, right? Or in medical school, you're being taught how to conduct different types of surgeries, or how to talk to different types of patients and so on. So, and because once you leave college, how are you going to learn it, right? So it is going to be very difficult to have a syllabus that is all in all, or all encompassing. It's just not possible. So I think it's important to appreciate what we have, and it's also important to realize that it's a continuously improving system, right? Just like the vaccine that we will take for COVID will change with time. It cannot be the same vaccine all the time, right? Because the virus is changing, right? Similarly, the syllabus that is taught in colleges will also not stay the same. So they will keep changing based on the feedback that comes in from the industry. And I would strongly advise you to use Google and YouTube to complement what you learn in college, right? It's it's a fantastic tool, because being able to visualize using videos is a great tool, and YouTube is a great tool, and all of it is free, right? So please complement what you learn at college using the internet. It really helps. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Then our next question is from Shilpa Lily. And She's saying, I'm sure that you must have had your fair share or self-doubts while you were coming up as an entrepreneur. And so her question is, how did you overcome that personal doubt and how did you move forward?
Again, another amazing question. And, I have to be completely honest, I have those days even now, right? And I think every entrepreneur does. And I've seen a lot of seasoned CEOs and founders who've run companies for decades say that. And I think it's normal to feel that way, because if you don't feel some element of self-doubt, you're not challenging yourself enough, right? Let's just try and understand when this happens. When does self-doubt come into picture, right? You have a situation which you feel that you are unable to handle, or you have a doubt if you can handle it. And this situation can come from anywhere. Like take COVID, for example. You talk to founders and entrepreneurs all around you. They have no idea what April, May, June quarter is going to look like, right? They have no idea if customers will return. If you own a shop in a mall, what is your situation right now, right? What are you going to do about rents? What are you going to do about employee salaries? Are you going to reduce their salaries? Now, situations like these are classic situations where, one starts getting a doubt, right? Am I really made for this? Can I do this? What are people going to say if I fail? What will my employees think? Could I have been better prepared? You might have sense of guilt. Well, my personal take on this is that it's okay to have some self-doubt if it challenges you to overcome it, right? It's very important that the outcome has to be positive. The self-doubt should not result in a negative outcome where you sulk and you're like, okay, I'm a incapable person, and it's just not working out. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel demotivated. It's okay to have self-doubt, provided it challenges you and it brings out the best in you. You have to have a fighter attitude, right? And you have to say that, okay, fine, I have sulked enough. Now I'm going to beat this. There must be some way I can beat this, right? Maybe I tell some of my team members to not take salary for a few months. Maybe I just tell my customers that, you know what, we are going to pause the service because it's not profitable for us to run it for a small number of people, whatever it is, right? I'm just talking about the present situation because it's easily relatable. But even without COVID, you have a lot of situations like this where you might suddenly have competitors who come in from nowhere with deep pockets. What are you going to do? They will challenge your pricing, right? They might be targeting your employees even, and try to pick your best people, right? All of these will happen, and what's important is to ensure that you have a positive outcome and make sure that the end result is always positive. And what I mean by positive is you must be coming out of that self-doubt with action plan, that you should come out saying, I'm going to do this 1, 2, and 3 and see, let it fail and then I'll try again, right? And if you still don't feel better, talk to people you trust. That could be your friends, your parents, teachers, relatives. It could be anybody who has your best interest in mind and will tell you that, hey, you are not that bad. Look at these other 9 things you did. Fantastic, right? Yeah, this one thing looks like you made a mistake, but correct it. No, what's the issue? Correct it, and don't. It's okay. You can do it. Come on, come. Let's go have a cup of coffee, and we will talk about it. Able to do that on your own, and it's magical. See, we are social people, right? We have the ability to express ourselves using language, which animals don't have. Of course they communicate, but I'm talking about the type of communication we do with words, right? And that's a great advantage. So talk to people if you're not able to yourself do this. But remember, everyone else is as foolish as you, right? They're as smart as you, or as foolish. Someone famously said, I think it was Steve Jobs, if I'm not wrong, that everything that you see around you was conceived by somebody just like you. So if they can do it, why can't you do it, right? So at the end of the day, remember that everyone is going through the same thing, right? So uh, rise up and get back to the fighting mode.
The next question is, how did you determine whether you were capable of starting a business, and at which time in your life did that spark occur? And what was your biggest mistake?
Okay, there's a lot of questions. Pardon me if I forget the questions. There are a lot of questions, so I'll try and answer them. Okay, and if I miss anything, Pavitra, bring it back. When did I know that I want to start a business? I think it was, I was quite old when it happened. I was around 30, 31 years old when these thoughts were not leaving me. That I was having a very good career, and I was always ranked among the top 10, top 25 percentile of people. I had a good ride. I think maybe the fact that I belong to India must have played a role, because I get disturbed when I see bad things. If I see somebody begging on the street and they come close to my car window and I make eye contact, I don't feel comfortable for another 5-10 minutes. I'm not able to dissociate myself from that reality, and I get very disturbed with that, and things like that. You see these kind of things happening. You see children begging and being physically abused, and a lot of bad things happening in the world that should not happen. And I think I used to believe that governments can do only so much. Governments have their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, they have biggest resources in terms of taxpayers' money and so on. But then governments are run by people who have to balance their interests, and we all know what goes into that. And I realized that companies can do a lot more than individuals. Companies may not be able to do what governments can do at that scale, but companies can definitely do things a lot more than what an individual can do, right? Because that's the power of a company, right? Once you build a brand and once you do good things, the positive effects start snowballing, and then suddenly it's a very big thing, and then you can do a lot of good things with it. So that was one of the key reasons why I wanted to start on my own. I still don't know if it's going to be big. We still have a single-digit crore turnover, so it's not very big. I guess that's what keeps me going, because eventually I want to die with the satisfaction that I tried, and something good came out of it. When did I know that? What was the other question, Pavitra? The question that I did not answer.
What was your biggest mistake?
Oh, I think I've made a lot of big mistakes. It's difficult to pick one. Well, I guess one of the mistakes was probably not doing enough market research before I started. I think I should have talked to a lot more, people in terms of what they need, or what they feel is lacking in the car servicing or car ownership ecosystem. Being a car enthusiast from my childhood, I thought I know it all. I think that was a big mistake. I thought I knew everything, and I had tracked the industry from the time I was a small child, and I could rattle off pros and cons of any vehicle that I saw on the road. And I had a sense that I know what customers need, and I was wrong, as you would have heard from my experience, right? Like, I started with something which was not really a necessary service, and I wasted 6 months on that. 6 months is a lot of time in the life of a startup. Luckily for me, I had saved a lot of money that I used to invest in my new business, and therefore it was okay. But imagine if it was someone else's money, right? How irresponsible it would have been on my part to have wasted their money without doing enough market research. So I think that was one of my biggest mistakes. If I were to do it again, I would probably spend a lot more time doing market research before I launch anything. And market research is a topic in itself, right? And there are varying schools of thought around how you should do it. I'm not getting into that right now, but I think I should have done more. But to be honest, I've made a lot of mistakes. This is just one big one that comes to mind immediately.
Thank you, sir. Now we move on to the next question. The next question is from Nivedita, and her question is, how did you prepare for the emergency during the rise of COVID-19, and how did you manage your business during that time?
Sure, I think very relevant question. To that question is ensuring that you have that's what it takes. That's the long and short of it, actually. How you get there is a different topic. How to get capital and so on. Because broadly, what happens is, you have businesses that do better during a pandemic. You have businesses that really fall apart during a pandemic, right? And for example, if you're running a pharmacy, this is the best time, right? But if you're running a cab, if you're a taxi driver, this is a horrible time, right? So the only way to sort of ride through these bumpy months is to have a lot of money in the bank. Because if you need to train people before they can work in your company, you don't want to lose trained people, right? And how do you keep people? You will have to pay salaries, and everyone has their monthly commitments, and you cannot reduce salaries by half or less than that. It becomes very difficult for people to manage their life, because expenses are still continuing, right? Even though there is a pandemic, so people need money. So depending upon what business you're in, you're either having a good time or a terrible time. If you don't have cash, you're dead. As far as a business is concerned, cash is oxygen. So if you have money in the bank, you're okay. I think we had a combination of luck and foresight, I would say, and that helped us during the first wave and is helping us in the second wave. So we kept aside enough money for a rainy day, which at that time looked like a lot of money, and I was always having this feeling that should I not be spending that money on marketing and growing my business faster? Can I not spend that money on building a better app? And today I'm thanking my stars that I did not do that, and we have the money to ride over the crisis. So I think as an entrepreneur, managing money is going to be very critical. And now that we know that pandemics can happen, it's very important to have at least 12 months of runway ahead of your business. Now, it doesn't matter if your business is profitable or not profitable, right? You must have money in the bank, which will tide you over at least 12 months. That's the only answer I can give you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there are many questions, and due to the time constraint, I am limiting. And so the next question is from Meera PK, and she's asking, describe your favorite moment after becoming an entrepreneur.
Well, I think my favorite moment was when I got my first customer feedback. I think that put to rest a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of self-doubt, as somebody asked. When I saw that first customer feedback, which eventually went online. So if you Google Wheels Wisdom reviews, you will see hundreds of feedback now, which have come after, in all these years. But the very first one that came is actually probably the happiest moment, because in my case, I did not work in the auto industry, although I loved cars. My professional experience was in the IT industry. So I was not coming from the auto world as an industry. Although I had recruited people who were fantastic. In fact, my first employee was a service advisor who took care of my Innova at Toyota. he handled an escalation so well that I was very impressed. And he was my first employee, and he actually heads service delivery at Wheels Wisdom today. And so, yes, there were fantastic people who came from the industry other than me. But for me personally, and as an entrepreneur, that was the day when I felt very happy, and probably the happiest day, because it sort of proved that the market is appreciating what I'm trying to do. It also validated that there is a market for this service, and people are ready to pay for it, and they see value in it. And the first feedback, to be honest, was more than all this. It also talked about how it made that customer's life easier, and how much he has started trusting us with just one experience. So that actually put a lot of confidence into me, and actually has given me a lot of energy to keep pulling along even when we have bad days. So yeah, I think this is probably a special moment for many entrepreneurs when they get this sort of a feedback from a paying customer. For me, that was the happiest day, I would say.
Thank you, sir. And thank you all the students who posted the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pavitra. Now I invite Anju Mary to convey the vote of thanks. Over to you, Anju.
Thank you, Vikita. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Anju Mary, on behalf of the MBA Department of SCMS School of Technology and Management, would like to propose the vote of thanks. We have come to the end of a thoughtful, inspiring, and a meaningful session on entrepreneurship. Is it for me? I'm definitely sure that all of us were able to gain new insights from this topic. At the outset, I thank our respected chief guest, Mr. Sandeep Menon, who accepted our invitation in spite of his busy schedule to speak to us. Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts and insights. It was very enlightening, and we are enriched by this knowledge. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our Vice Chairman, Dr. Pramod P. Thevenur, and Registrar and Group Director, Dr. Radha P. Thevenur, for providing us the platform to empower our knowledge. My words may not suffice to express the sense of gratitude to our beloved principal, Dr. G. Shashikumar, sir, for his immense support and presence. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank our beloved HOD, Dr. Susan Abraham, for her constant support and guidance. Thank you, ma'am. I'm much obliged to our faculty coordinator, Dr. Shobha Menon and Ms. Devi S. Nair, for their effort and guidance for arranging this webinar. Thank you so much. I thank all the faculty members from the department for their participation in this event. Next, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude towards the organizing team, without whom this session would not have been possible. And finally, I'm grateful to MBA batch 17 and 18 for making this event fruitful by their active participation. Once again, I thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Anju. Now it's time to wind up this wonderful session. I thank you all for your patient listening and active participation. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Thank you all for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Sandeep sir, thank you.